Hello and welcome to Retech, and today we're going to do part 3 of the David Pleasance story. If you haven't followed part 1 and 2, I'd kind of like to suggest you go and have a quick review of those. Watch those 2 episodes first because everything is intertwined. But today we're going to progress through to the Commodore era. This is when David joined Commodore and how he got involved with Commodore and its kind of inner workings. And also there's a lot of things in here that I don't think anyone's actually heard before, as it's come directly from the horse's mouth, so to speak. This is David's recollections and David's memories and David's experiences of the initial foray into Commodore. So I hope you join us, and I hope you watch this episode and watch the previous ones if you haven't. Let's take a look.
So I hadn't been at Pioneer very long, but anyway, we decided we'd go back to the UK, and so what we did is that we took Marcel and we went to Pattaya in Thailand for 2 weeks, and then I put them on the plane back to the UK, and I spent the next 7 weeks travelling the world looking for what's going to be the next thing.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
I didn't know what it was, but I knew I could find it. And it was in that 7 weeks, I went to America, I went to Mexico, I went to Japan, all over the place. And that's when I realised that computing, and in particular home computing, was going to be, in my opinion, was going to be the next best thing.
Yeah.
And I knew absolutely nothing about it, not anything.
It's a transition from music all the way through to...
Yeah, this is exactly how, one of these things that happened out by chance, really. Anyway, cut a long story short, I got back to the UK, and I knew that I wanted to get into computing, but how, where, what? And of course, in those days, there's no internet. So it was, if you wanted, there used to be advertising in the newspapers. So Thursday newspapers was full of good jobs, and the Sunday newspapers. Yeah. So I'm scouring all the newspapers, looking for anything with the word computing, whatever it was, with no qualifications or anything. But anyway, I saw this little job advertised at what turned out to be an agency in London. And as I think it was something to do with computer services, I'm not sure. But anyway, I got on the phone, and I'm a good salesperson. Eventually, after about 35 minutes, I got this guy to agree to me to have an interview. And I said I didn't know what the job was about, anything, I swear to you. So anyway, I got to London, suited and booted, as they say. And as I arrived, I can see it like it was yesterday, there was a lady just leaving, and I remember holding the door open for this lady as she walked out, right? So I walked into the place, shook his hand, and sat down and had this interview. And after the interview, this guy said to me, he said, "Look, Mr. Pleasance," he said, "I got no doubt at all from interviewing you that this job that you come for, you could do it standing on your head." Right. He said, "But I'm not going to put you forward for it."
Oh, okay.
I said, "Look, thanks a lot." He said, No, he said, "Hear me out." He said, "The thing is," he said, "you've got the most incredible retail background I've ever seen." And I've been in the industry 30 years or whatever it was. He said, as a professional recruitment consultant, I'd be remiss of me not to give you a position that utilises your skills and your position. So I got up to leave. He said, "Sit your backside down." He said, "I can hardly believe this myself." He said, "Did you just see a lady leave just before?" I said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Well, she's just given me a brief for a job that I think you would be absolutely perfect for." He said, "I've not even had time to write this up, but just, because you came straight." Yeah. Anyway, he said, she works for a computer company, and they have a dilemma. They want to launch a business computer into the retail market, and they don't know, should they get a computer expert who knows nothing about retail, or a retail expert that knows nothing about computers. Yeah. He said, and I said, absolutely, you've got to get a retail expert because they know how to deal with the business. Learning a product is, when you're selling a fridge 1 week or kids' bicycle next, it doesn't matter. So he said, and I think you'd be perfect for this job. Okay. And that was Commodore.
Right, okay, so that's how you got into Commodore.
Yeah, it was never advertised. I was there at the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
So I find myself 3 days later, I'm in Brown's Hotel in London, across the table from that lady I'd opened the door for, right?
Brilliant.
Eileen Stroud, her name was. And anyway, so I can remember she said to me, David, she said, the thing about Commodore is that it's a really exciting company, lots of things are happening. And, you know, opportunities arise out of nowhere. And she said, I've got no doubt at all. She said, what we want you to sell the Commodore PET into the retail market. And la-di-la-di-la-di-la. Anyway, 2 days later, I'm in front of the then MD, and I got the job.
Wow.
Never advertised anything. I mean,
no.
Is that fluke or what? You know.
That's incredibly lucky as well.
Thank you, Lord. You know.
Brilliant.
Anyway, so my first day at Commodore, they were in Ajax Avenue, Slough. My first day I walked in, and they'd got a new boss of the business systems division, Mike. What's his name? Mike. Oh, I can't think. I will in a second. Anyway, he'd only been there a couple of days, and he'd got absolutely nothing planned for me. And I sat at his desk, and I sat waiting to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And his secretary came in. Anita, she was actually Spanish, and so her and I hit it off really well, you know.
Yeah.
And anyway, she walked in and she said, Michael, she said, I've got to go to the supermarket to get some coffee and tea. You know, any preference?
Yeah.
And he sat in front of me, picked up the phone, he rang his wife and he said, darling, what tea do I like?
Right.
Can you imagine that?
Wow.
And I nearly fell off the chair, you know. I thought, who is this guy? He's a whim, he doesn't even know, you know, what bloody tea.
No.
And anyway, to cut a long story short, I made an excuse to walk out of his office. And I walked down and I went and found a guy called John Baxter, who was Commodore's marketing manager then. And I walked up to John and I said, John, look, I'm David Pleasance, I've just joined today. I'm recruited to sell pets and so on. He said, okay. I said, is there anything you can do for me? You know, getting up. He said, I've got a perfect job for you. He said, there's a new big retail store just opened up on the North Circular Road. He said, I'm meaning to go over there and see what they're up to. It's like I had the chance. He said, go out and check them out.
Yeah.
You know, he said, it'd be perfect for you. Good start, which was. And God is my witness, I walked into this place. And as I walked in, they said, who are you? And I said, my name's David Pleasance, I'm from Commodore. Commodore, come in. Yeah. And they put a glass of champagne in my hand.
Right.
And I said, I could get used to this. You know, this is amazing. It turned out, it happened to be their open day. And they had actually invited Commodore, but nobody had responded. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
So I was the response. So that was my very first day in Commodore. Amazing. So then I set about doing my job. I thought, how am I going to do this? First of all, I've been out of the UK for 5 years. So those retail stores that I used to know will all be slightly different now. So I need to get and understand who's what. So I did a tour, I did Dixon's and Comet and Lasky's and Curry's and, you know, the Co-ops and all of these places to work out who was going to be the best bet for me to launch the pet into.
Yeah.
And it became obvious from that work, groundwork, research, which is so important, the best company to do that with was a company called Lasky's. Right. Do you remember Lasky's?
Yeah, I remember Lasky's, yeah.
But the thing about Lasky's is they had 54 stores across the country, and in 26 of those stores, they had a store within a store called Micropoint. Right. And they were selling business related products, software. I think they might have been selling printers or whatever, but nobody was really selling computers. But it was obvious that they would be the right place to go to. Yeah. So then, as a professional, I went to the head office. I met their MD, and I said, "Look, I'm David Pleasance. I'm Commodore. We're looking to introduce some new products. Can you give me permission to go and interview the Micropoint managers? I want to get some information from them." So I got a letter. Yeah. And I went to 24 of their 26 stores. And I was in the 24th store. Yes, I've got 2 left to do. I was in the 24th store, having virtually done what I needed to do. Yeah. after my 26th store, all I was really doing was pre-selling. Then I was going to go back, get the campaign, and then start selling. So everything was going completely to plan. I was in the 26th store, phone call, Eileen Stroud. And luckily I was in where I said I was going to be, because we lived in mobile phones in those days. No. So anyways, I get on the phone and she said, David, do you remember in our conversation I told you that things happen really quickly and all? I said, yeah. She said, well, your star has just risen. She said, the 64 stars are going crazy. The guy who was doing it has just left. We need somebody to look after the major retailers with the Commodore 64. You're it.
Right, as quick as that.
Yeah, and I mean, I said, look, can I do the other two stores? No, that's dead, you forget that. It turns out that Commodore, in their production plans, and they had never planned to have enough product to sell into retail. Right. So I was recruited for nothing.
Really?
For a job that really didn't exist, right?
Oh, wow.
And then I joined the consumer division. Now, that's where my trouble started. Because the guy who was the sales manager for consumer products, Mike Tate was the guy I went to. So his name Paul Welsh, and he didn't like me. The reason he didn't like me, he didn't know anything about me, was because he didn't pick me.
Right. Okay.
See, the way I used to work, Commodore, normally you'd recruit whoever you wanted, but sometimes when times were tough, I'd say, if you're going to need to recruit somebody, you recruit somebody from within.
Yeah.
Right? And this is one of those times, because I was like the most perfect candidate, and I'm sure if I'd had an interview with him, I probably would have got the job anyway, because I was the perfect candidate.
Yeah.
But he didn't like it because that he didn't pick me.
Yeah.
And he used to make things difficult for me and all that. I'm above all of that, I don't care. Anyway, not long after, we had a new MD came in, and I really liked this guy. He was a guy from Nick Bessie. His name is from IBM. He was a marketing guy from IBM. He was a really switched-on guy, and he said to me after a couple of days, he said, "I want to spend the day with you." And he said, "Meet me here at 9 o'clock tomorrow." I said, "No." I said, "You want to come up with me tomorrow? Meet me here at 7:30 because I've got to be at the co-op in Wilmslow at 9 o'clock, right?"
Okay.
So anyway, we did, it was fine. And we're driving along, and he said, "Right," he said, "I want you to tell me the truth." And I said, "Well, I said, do you want me to tell you what you want to hear, or do you want me to tell the truth?" He said, "Only the truth, and if I ever find out that you're not telling me the truth, you'll be out of work." Which I like that.
Yeah.
So he said, what's going on in your world? I said, everything's pretty good. He said, except I've got one big problem. What's that? I said, Paul Welsh, my boss. He said, well, everybody says that. I said, no, hear me out. I said, unfortunately, most of my customers have a big dislike for Paul. They just don't like him. And I said, that makes it difficult for me, you know. And he said, I think you're exaggerating, aren't you? And I said, I'm not. I said, I don't know why they don't like him. And he thought I was just, winding up. And anyway, we arrived in the co-op at Wilmslow, as God is my witness. Peter was the marketing director that I used to deal with, and he came down to sign us in. He looked at me up and down, he looked at Nick, didn't know who he was, and he said, "You haven't got that Welsh with you, have you?" And Bessie looked at me and said, "You set this up." And I said to him, mate, I said, "How could I have set it up? You only asked me last night.
Yeah.
This appointment has been booked for 4 weeks. And we didn't have our conversation except in the car. I couldn't have set it up." So anyway, Nick said, "Would you mind telling me why you just said that?" And Peter said, "That guy's never going to set foot in this building again." I mean, seriously, right?
Yeah.
So Nick said, "Well, I understand." He said, "Would you mind telling me why?" And he said, "I'll tell you exactly why." He said, "Because he was here in this building 3 weeks ago, or whatever it was. And he said, we've been waiting for a credit note for you guys for some stock that we sent back. Or we're trying to send back." He said, "And you've been delaying. He said, and he was there 3 weeks ago." He said, "I was on my way into a board meeting." He said, "and Paul Burns personally assured me that I'd have that credit note on my desk the next day. So on that basis," he said, "I went into my board meeting and I told him, and he hasn't delivered."
Right.
He said, "He's not setting foot in this building ever again," right? I mean, if I'd have planned it, I couldn't have done any better, but it was absolutely true. So anyway, on the way back, Nick says to me, I said, "Look, I don't know if this is atypical." I said, "All I know is that people don't like him for whatever reason. They don't trust him, and he obviously got the message." So then he said to me, "Look," he said, "as you know, I can't recruit from outside. He said, if Paul's job became available, is there anybody within the company that you can recommend? Because I'd only been there a little while, right?
Yeah.
So, I didn't put myself forward. I wasn't ready for that. And I said, you know, Nick, I said, there is the perfect candidate. Who's that? I said, it's Tom Hart, a guy called Tom Hart. Tom Hart, he said, he's in the accounts department, he's an accountant. I said, yeah. So, what are you suggesting? I said, well, there's two reasons. I said, first of all, he and I are mates. We've been good friends since I said, well, not only that, I said, the customers love him. They've dealt with him, they're paying money and everything, so they trust him and they love him. I said, and he happened to mention to me he'd love to get into the sales department. He just mentioned to me not long ago.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, Tom is my boss. Paul has been on another assignment, got fired. I mean, Paul hated me for that ever since, but he earned it. I didn't.
That's it.
But anyway, Tom and I, we were great friends, and he was really good to work with. Even though he was my boss, he knew I knew my business. He just let me do it with a little bit of guidance. He wasn't telling me, because I could sell him and hook him and everything else. Perfect arrangement. And this was the time when I did the massive deal to get rid of all of the plus fours in the world.
Right. Okay.
I sold the world's supply of plus fours in one deal. All right, which is in the book.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if you read the book. Have you read?
I've read.
About the guy with his foot up on my desk picking his nose. This is the truth. Anyway, so Tom and I came out of Greens. It was. We came out of Greens and we did car wheels in a car park because we pulled off the biggest bloody, and then we went back again and we sold them all the peripherals that went with the plus four from around the world, the whole lot, everything you could get.
Yeah.
Because it was selling so well. With £99 pack was selling like wildfire before Christmas. So they bought all the monitors and hard drives and everything else. We were heroes. Then what happened next? Then Nick Bessie left. And what happened is that when he took over as GM, MD of Commodore UK, that role also encompassed our international business. We had all of these countries in the world where we didn't have an office.
Right.
And he was responsible for that as well.
Right.
And in those days, Australia was one of those countries, and so was New Zealand. Afterwards, they got their own offices, but at that time, it's got to be about 84, something like that, 85, something like that. Anyway, he did a trip to New Zealand, and when he got to New Zealand, he met up with, because of his past, with somebody he knew who was a dealer for IBM,
Right.
and that person offered him a partnership to join his company in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And he took it. So that's why he left Commodore.
Right. Okay.
This is at the time when we were closing Corby. With a really terrible decision. And we had the guy who was our marketing manager. There's a guy called Chris Caday. And he was a schizophrenic.
Right.
And I hated both of them. Absolutely. He was an unbelievable character, awful character. I mean, I came in one morning. I'd just done all the sales for Christmas for the 64 packs, and everything was perfect. And I opened the newspaper up, and there was Curry's was selling the 64 pack, which would be $149. And I walked in and I said, "Oh, we're in a mess. It's terrible. What are you talking about?" I said, "Look at this." And he sat me down. He said, "David, why are you getting so upset? It's only business. Don't get so upset. Don't take it so personally." I said, "Chris, you don't understand what this means." I said, "Dixon's are not going to take a product that they're supposed to be selling it for $199 and only get $149 for it. They're going to cancel their orders. It's going to be terrible." And I told him, "It's fine." And he actually made me believe it.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, as if nothing has happened on my life, he came in and he said, "Oh, by the way, David, you are going to make your forecast this quarter, aren't you?" Like we'd never had that conversation.
Yeah.
He's really, it was incredible. Anyway, they put him in charge after Nick had left while they found somebody else.
Yeah.
At the worst thing they could possibly do. So, and we were closing Corby. And do you know what he did? I'll never forget it as long as I live. We was closing, like no announcement had been made, but we were closing more or less imminently. So anyway, I was there with 2 or 3 other sort of managers. I was one of there were only 13 of us in the whole company left after Commodore Corby closed down. And I think there was about 4 or 5 of us still in the building at 5 o'clock or whatever. He said, right, gentlemen, he said, all those like mid-manager officers, he said, I want to go into the office. He said, I've got all these boxes here. He said, get all their personal stuff and put it in the box outside their office and lock the door. When I came in the next morning, they couldn't get in their own offices. All their personal stuff was in boxes, and with a note on the door saying, go down to the canteen for an announcement. And they all went down there, and he said, as of now, you're out of work. If you've got a company car, give us the keys. We've got a bus that's going to take you off. And that was how he did it. It was absolutely awful. I mean, the most dreadful thing possible. But these are people that, that you meet. He went on, apparently he's a millionaire now.
Oh, right, okay.
He opened his own PR business or something, I'm not quite sure. But I mean, he was a classic schizophrenic. I really mean that.
Really?
Yeah, terrible, terrible man. And anyway, then he moved back to, while he was still in charge, he moved we worked actually in Maidenhead, next to Slough, where we had been. Nice place in Maidenhead. And I was having an argument with one of my staff about something that he'd done wrong, or I can't remember what it was. And Chris Cady, he made us get 2 chairs face to face and put our hands on each other's knees and look into each other's eyes and say, look, this is not important, And he was a Mooney, I think they called him.
Right, okay, yeah.
And he was trying all this sort of Zen stuff on us, which all we wanted to do was to punch each other's lights out, He was an absolutely dreadful man. And anyway, we didn't get anybody for a while. And then they recruited this guy called Steve Franklin, and Steve came from the business systems background, and when he came in, the first thing he did was he fired everybody in the business systems division. He fired everybody except 2 people. One person he didn't fire was a guy called Peter Talbot, who was in charge of our education, and had good education, contacts, university, schools and all that kind of stuff. And he was public school educated. Yeah. And he kept Kieran Sumner, who was looking after the Amiga 1000. Right. Which, of course, PC boys didn't know anything about the Amiga, so he had no choice. He didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. Not one word. No. And, so anyway, on the 3rd week, he came in Monday morning, he said, Pleasance, my office now. Sit your ass down. He said, there's no easy way to say this, he said, but if I knew anybody who understood your side of the business, you wouldn't be here today. Right. I said, oh, thanks a lot, and he said, no, he said, I'm not having a go. He said, I don't know anything about you. He said, but I've been told to come in and change the complete ethos of Commodore UK. I have no idea why, because there wasn't anything wrong with the ethos, right? No. Mind you, with Chris Cady being in charge, I could understand lots of weird things. Anyway, cut a long story short, he said, right, as I'm stuck with you, these are my rules. And then he went on for about 20 minutes about loyalty and trust and looking after customers and all that stuff. Everything of which I've lived my whole life by. So when he'd finished, I said, like it was yesterday, honestly, I said, look, Steve, I'll tell you what, I'll make a deal with you. You've got no effing opportunity to make an effing deal with me. I said, look, hear me out. I said, I've had this idea, what I want to do, that I believe will bring us more business than you've ever seen in your life before. Or, if it doesn't work, I'll give you cause to get rid of me. Yeah. So what do you want to do? And I said, well, what's that over there? It was 500 on his desk, on a desk. He said, that's an effing computer. I said, no, it's not. I said, it's a piece of plastic with some keys on it. I said, have you got any idea how difficult it is to market that inanimate piece of plastic with some keys on it? Yeah. I said, we're doing it all wrong. I said, from now on, we don't sell computers, we sell dreams. And I want to put these packs together that show in full colour what this is going to deliver for you, how it's going to change your life.
Yeah.
So you've actually got something to market it. And that's when the idea for the Batman pack came from, right? And anyway, he had the guts to go with it. He had nothing to lose, really. And so I sat with my team and I said, right, boys and girls, I want to do this pack. Now, what is going to be the best, most wanted piece of software coming up for the winter season? Yeah. And everybody more or less agreed that they knew that because the movie was coming out, Batman the movie was coming out. And they said, oh, that's going to be huge because it's going to be on television, on cinema and everything else. And that was produced by Ocean.
Yeah, the Batman pack was massive. It was huge.
Oh yeah, tell me about it.
It was one of the biggest things ever, to be honest. It's the one my kid plays.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I don't know, do you still want me to talk about this? Because this is more about Commodore. Do you want me to talk about other things?
It's about you and how you did it in Commodore. It's because, at the end of the day, people know about Commodore. They don't really know about what you did in that respect, because, there's all the magazine articles out there.
Well, at least so they're getting the truth.
So thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed that episode. And as you can see, it was an episode about David Pleasance's experience and life up and through to that point. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll stick with us for the next episode of the David Pleasance Story. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Thank you.